Hey, welcome. I got everything sorted out. I'm going to take you through the setup steps, and we're going to get going with the solo campaign. There was one thing I misled you on, and that was with the. I told you that these upgrades you get when you win. I was incorrect. You get an upgrade whether you win or lose. So it's very interesting. You have 10 missions you need to win in order for the campaign to end. Anytime you lose a mission, you lose 3 points. But no matter what, you get an upgrade. So it is possible you can get all of these upgrades because if you lose enough, and also between losing and winning, you can get all of them. So this solo campaign actually has me in analysis paralysis big time, and I'll share with you what I mean by that in just a jiffy here. But so there's some seriously interesting strategies you can try to do with this, yeah. So anyways, I'll get to that in a second. So we're gonna get going here. I'm going to assume that people have never played before or anything, so I will try to go explain the rules as I go. I'm not going to get too much into it, from the start. And so let's go ahead and get going here. So the first thing that we have is the solo setup. So it says we start with the near sector, or near. See, already, I'm already failing the phonetic challenge. I'm going to call it the near sector. Then draw more sectors until we get 2 spawn points and 4 sectors total. If we draw Zaya, Shia, shuffle it back in. Then arrange all the drawn sectors. Now, however, if you then read the next line, it says if Kemplar 2 and Loth aren't on the map, then we have to find those and do more stuff. So anyways, here's the near sector. It's a star. So those red lines means it's impassable. We can't go inside the star. But there is a pathway around the star, and it's because the kiln is in orbit. So here, I'm going to put this here. I don't know where a good, I'm trying to debate where is the good place to start our system here. But we'll start out there. And the kiln it's an NPC. Okay, it's a hub of trade and commerce. So if I flip this over, the kiln itself is something we can dock onto, and it acts like a planet. It orbits this near star like a planet, and when you land on it, you do all the same rules as a planet. You can recharge and do business like you could if you were on a planet, and you can sell Ember there, and this symbol here means you can get missions. And then this over here, this empty space, you can you could do what's called a sifter or something like that. Basically, you're collecting. Just think of it like gold mining. We collected a bunch of dirt and crap, and so we're gonna sift it, through the system. It's gonna shake, and all the dirt's gonna go away, and then the gold gets left behind. And then what we would do is we would flip this over, and then you get whatever the prize is on the other side. So the this kiln does that sifting, and here's the miniature for it. And so what it does is it starts right here on this space, and it'll tell you it's in orbit, and you have to roll. So here's another thing. When you see this number that's got a color on it, it means you're going to roll that die. The 6 stands for a D6. And then what's going to happen is it's actually going to move in that orbit around. And it only triggers when a player were to dock into the kiln. Then it moves anytime a player docks onto it. So let me show you that real quick. There's 4 dice in the game, and they are color coded, so it's really wonderfully done. So that D6 was blue, and so you can see. So you don't need to even remember that. You don't have to be a D&D player or anything to even remember what the different D6, D20s look like. It's just they're going to be different colors as well. And obviously we have a D20, and then an 8 and a 12. Excuse me. So we start with that, and then we're going to draw more sectors. And I have the sectors randomly shuffled there. And we're going to draw more sectors until we get 4 or more. And I don't think, actually I need to check real quick. I think I can reveal them however I like in any configuration, yes. So, so what that means is I can choose to just make my whole universe go in one direction, or I can just, make it all, concentric. I don't know what the right path or wrong path is in regards to that. So that's one thing. And then another thing I need to check real quick. Yes. Okay, so we're going to do this setup that I'm going through with you. And then after that, we get to do the campaign choices. And here's why it's very important. And I'm going to pause, and we're going to pause the setup. I want to explain the campaign choices so you're thinking about those like I am. So here's our 10 missions we have to do. And these are 10 games. So we're going to be playing 10 full games of this. Now, one of them only goes to 5 points. So that's a quick game versus maybe the 15-pointer one, right? Or the 20-point one. So we're going to be playing 10 games of this. And so, for example, I'm going to pick... so they're sorted in piles. These are the piles that are based on roll. So, for example, Merchant Master is all about, buying and selling goods. So here you get, the game goes up to 10 points. At least 6 of those needs to be from selling cargo or buying in this game. And you can buy them, if you spend 5,000, you can get a fame point. FP stands for fame points. So let's say I win this mission, right? I get to take a campaign upgrade, whether I win or lose. I get to take one of these. And for the rest of the campaign, I get this reward on the bottom. And so once per game as an action, I can choose a cargo type and refill the economy board, blah, blah, blah. So this is where the analysis paralysis comes in. Which of these rewards, because obviously if I do this as my first game, I get to have 9 more games with this bonus, right? So I want to maybe pick a card that has a reward that I'm going to enjoy the most for every game here on out. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is maybe I don't want to do Merchant Master. I'm sounding like Rahdo all of a sudden. Maybe you want to do this. Maybe I don't want to do Merchant Master because there's this thing here that gives you abilities that help you with buying and selling. Somewhere on here. Right here. So I can buy and sell with an increased amount of rewards and money. So maybe I want to get some of these upgrades first and then do that mission. So that's some of the analysis paralysis I'm going through is I don't know, honestly, what the right order should be. And I think a true cool challenge would be to just shuffle these suckers and draw them randomly. So anyways, there's the merchant one and there's a mission one, which I feel is a different kind of role. So then what I did is these are my sorted piles. So these are your standard ones that I think might be one of the first ones we do because they seem to be just pretty neutral. These ones are really weird. And then these ones are super difficult. And I'll get into that. And this one falls under the roles, Fierce Fighter. That's where you just got to kill stuff. But I put it up next to here because I want to show you this one. This is a 5 victory point one, 5 fame point mission. You have to win on your first turn. I'm not kidding you. We got to win on our first turn, or otherwise we fail the mission. So, what are the ways you can win or score points? So I got to score 5 points on the first turn. Well, the first way is if I discard 2 exploration tokens. I don't know. Now, so why am I explaining this? I'm explaining this because we're going to set up these tiles. Some of them are going to have these exploration tokens that appear on them. And so once we set up the initial start for the mission, then and only then do we have to choose which one of these we're going to do. Okay? So this particular one where you need to score 5 points in 1 turn, you need to have the perfect setup for that. Otherwise, it's impossible. And so yes, if there's 2 exploration tokens that are available to us, relatively quickly, that's 1 point right there. Then we have to complete a mission for 1. No clue if we'd be able to do that. Destroy another ship, we can get 1 to 3 points for that. I think it's only going to be 2 because we're only playing with NPCs. So the Enforcer is worth 2, and he's not an easy thing to kill. Sell all possible cubes in your hold for 1. Purchase a new ship. That costs 8,000 money. Pay 5,000 just to get 1. So boom, you can just pay 5,000 and get 1. Give energy to a player. Well, that's not possible in solo. Claim a title card. That's also random. This luck thing's random. Event cards are random. And then sifting relic tokens. That's the thing I was just explaining you can do with the kiln. I mean, so you can see there that maybe I can guarantee I get 1, 2, maybe 3. But I got to figure out how to get the other 2. This one is a very difficult mission. Holy buckets. And it's so bizarre. First turn, you're going to spend more time setting up the dang game than you are playing it. And then this one is a bizarre one, and I put under the difficult. The NPC player starts with 10 points, and so you have to get 20 before they get to 20. Super duper difficult. So those 2 are definitely not going to be, or they're going to be very difficult to do. I don't see myself using those on our first mission. I see myself doing one of these 3. These roll ones, maybe we can do Fierce Fighter. I'm actually considering that one. I'm considering it. The problem is the reward is once per game. If I destroy an NPC ship, I get stuff. I don't know if I necessarily want to do that every game from here on out. So that's not necessarily a reward I want for the rest of the game. These 3. Is just sifting relic tokens. So it's relatively straightforward. 5 of my 10 points have to come from sifting relic tokens. Once per game, as an action, you may place your ship in the kiln, which is awesome because that's like an instant teleport, right? So you get to instantly teleport to the kiln. I think that's very good. Earn at least 5 points from titles is difficult. Because the titles come out randomly, so you never know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates. And then this one earns 7 from exploration tokens or gates. Depending on how this plays out, this may be an easy one to do for your first game. And then once per game, you may reveal all exploration tokens currently on the board, and they get left face up. And then you still have to collect them normally, but you get to see what they are. That's actually quite powerful. So I'm leaning towards this one as maybe our first game. But we get to complete our setup before we have to decide. So we're going to draw. Now the next thing that happens when you draw is you see these little symbols. There's a lot of different kinds of symbols. You got the little circle, you got an arrow, you got, I don't even know what you would want to call that. What's the shuffleboard? Yeah, that's a shuffleboard cue. This is just a line. That's a T, and robot head or a square. So you have to announce whenever you draw the next tile which one you're connecting to. So for example, I'm going to announce I'm going to connect to this arrow here. Okay, so we're going to go that way. Actually, no, because I have a lot of my components over there. We're going to go to this thing, the shuffleboard cue. So I'm going to draw the next tile, and it's Loth. This is actually one of the 2 that we needed to get in the start. And so the shuffleboard cue is this here. So what you do is you rotate it around until the shuffleboard cue matches the shuffleboard cue. So once you do that, then you place it, and that determines the orientation of the tile. Now, the next thing to understand is every planet has a barrier. You can think of it as a natural barrier or even, some kind of man-made barrier. The way you get to the planet is this is your entrance here. Now the red means this is an outlaw planet. So you can see here the little skull. It's it's an outlaw planet, and so if you were to ever go to this planet, you would actually get a bounty because only smugglers and never-doers go here. this is a place that lets you sell any of these cubes. So these cubes represent resources in the game. And so the game comes with different cubes. I was trying to draw you a random set here, but obviously I didn't do a good job. There's all kinds of different types of resources. They each have a letter next to them. I couldn't remember what they mean. It doesn't matter. Color is all that matters. But yes, here you can sell any of them at this place. So it's a pretty cool place to sell, but you're gonna gain a bounty for using it because it's an outlaw hideout. So we place this down, and like I said, this is a place for missions. You're gonna see a lot of those out here. And then this little question mark here, we grab, I have a pile that I've randomly, just laid out here. And we just grab one, and these are the exploration tokens that we were just talking about. That if we successfully finish that mission, for the rest of the campaign, I can just announce once per game that I'm gonna flip all these over and I get to see what's on the other side of these. These are like candy. They usually give you good things, but there's sometimes bad things on them. But no matter what, whether they're good or bad, if you have 2 of them, you can hand them in for 2,000 bucks or a fame point, which is how you win the game. So, anyways, they're very important to the strategy, but take note, it's inside the barrier, which means you'd have to gain a bounty to go in here and get this. So this is a deadly one to try to go get. Anyways, that's our first tile. So now we're gonna do our second tile. So where do we want it to go? I'm gonna choose this little arrow here. So next one is Doravan 5. And it's a neutral, and the neutrals are going to have a green barrier. Now the barriers, you can go through the barriers, even if it's a neutral, or it doesn't matter what the lawful rate of the planet is. The barriers can cause damage, and there's like a table you have to roll against to determine whether you take damage, or sometimes the barrier can repel you and you don't make it through, but you can try to sneak through a barrier instead of going through the main entrance. Lawful characters going into here would take a bounty, but they're allowed in. If you had a lawful planet, which I think has a blue barrier, if you have a bounty, you're not allowed in at all. And so the only way to get in is to sneak through the barriers. Okay, so this is Doravan, and right here is the arrow, so it's actually going to line up pretty much the way you see it, like so. Okay, couple of things. What's this number 5 and what's that number 4? Those are spawn points. And if you recall from our solo setup, we needed to draw 4 sectors with at least 2 spawn points. So we've already got our 2 spawn points, okay? So we've already met that condition, and now we have to draw 4 sectors total, and we currently have 3. We have near and then 2 others. So I'm gonna draw one more, and then we're done. So I'm going to draw this last one over here and connect to this T. And we got Kemplar 2, which is the other planet we needed. Holy cow. This was not designed this way, folks. I didn't plan this or seed the deck this way. It just worked out like that. So we actually have quite an interesting start. Let me just put it that way. It's actually going to impact how we play a lot. All right, so one thing I'm always going to forget is to put this out. And there should be one on this one. There's usually one on every planet. So there's one here, and then you can see the blue line, because this is the lawful planet, Kemplar is. That's a lawful planet, and of course they buy spice. They buy the, I don't know what the C stands for. I call it carbon. I know it's not carbon. But anyways, yeah. So that's a setup. That's 4 sectors. And this is crazy cray. Normally this doesn't happen. I know this is my first time playing it, but just understanding the rules, this shouldn't have happened, but, or it's rare, let's put it that way. If Kemplar 2 and or Loth aren't on the map, we have to find them and then basically shuffle them into the top 5 sectors. So I would have to find them out of that pile and then take the top 5 from the pile and then shuffle Kemplar 2 and Loath in with them. Basically because the game needs those two to come out early. They want them to come out early. That's the whole thing. You're seeding the random deck to get these to come out early if they haven't already come out. And so that's why I was saying this is really bizarre that we just through random luck got the two. So we don't even have to do 1.1, and in most of games that we're going to play, including I'm sure your games, you're going to have to do this 1.1 step. So we have to remove these titles from the game. I've already done that. They're just, the titles are, you know, you can basically do something. So here, Avenger. To claim this title, you have to be the first player to destroy the ship that most recently destroyed you. So this is out of the game because this is meant to be more player interaction kind of card. And then you would earn a fame point for doing that. So it's basically like a global mission. So any player can get this if they do this particular task. It's not a personal mission. And then the titles give you a reward too. So you don't just get the fame point, you get this thing at the bottom. So now you get to add +1 to your attack roll every turn for the rest of the game. Not the rest of the campaign, just the rest of the game. Okay, so then we remove the events Fesco Grand Prix and Change of Heart. Oh, I didn't do that. So let me do that. Fesco Grand Prix and Change of Heart. There's the Grand Prix. And there's Change of Heart. So I'm assuming those are also player interactive. So these event cards are new with the expansion. I never played with them. So what's going to happen is, you know, you're going to score points, right? And so I'm going to need to have to pick a color here. So let me grab, I'll be red, and I'll make the NPC green. So NPC is green and we're red, like that. And so as we score points, anytime somebody gets, it doesn't matter who, the first player to get to the pink spot, we're going to draw a pink event card. And then that's going to globally impact the rules of the game. And some of the event cards stay forever. Some of them stay only a certain number of turns. And then when you get to the yellow one, a title comes out. And then that's like I said, a global mission. And so anybody can earn a title once one of those comes out. And once again, it's only whoever gets there first. So it doesn't matter who gets there first. These impact all players. The titles and the events impact everybody. So it's just whoever gets there first that triggers it. Okay, so we're gonna get those events out of the game. All right, so now we have to, so it says set the, what you need for victory. Well, we're gonna determine that based on our mission that we pick. And then we spawn our tier 1 ship, and then we spawn the NPCs if needed. We buy our starting outfits, which is outfits, that's the word I always forget. That's the word for weapons and shields and stuff like that. And you start with $4,000, $2,000 on hard mode and $6,000 on easy mode. Now, the campaign rules say that you should start on hard mode. So we're gonna start with only $2,000 instead of $4,000, and I cannot tell you enough how sad that makes me. $2,000 it is, and it is really nice components this game. So we got these 2 metal here for $2,000. So I haven't picked my ship or anything like that. One last thing we need to do is just standard setup before we get going is we have to do this economy board. So this economy board is got all of the cubes here. So I think there's 5 different kinds, yes. And so these cubes are going to represent the economy of the game. So remember when I said you could just go from one planet to the next and just buy and sell, and make a ton of money. Here's a perfect example. This setup here is exactly that situation. So in the original game, I could buy 2 of these orange cubes, these S cubes, which are spice, I think. Right? I can buy 2 spice, and then I could, well, actually there's nowhere to sell it at this point, but I could sell it over at Loath, And then here you can see I can buy 2 green. So let's say that this was a place where I could sell spice. I easily have a trade route, boom, boom. I'm just going back and forth, and I can do it quicker than any other player, and I win. You know, it's just an instant I win kind of moment. Because you get a fame point anytime you sell 2 or more cubes. Okay, so how did they fix that? Well, we now have this market board. So if I were to sell a spice, the spice, of course, goes here, but it doesn't actually go on the board. What happens is their manufacturing produces a P, whatever the P is, and so then a blue actually shows up on the board. So if I sell a spice, the blue shows up on the board. And the demand, let's say this is empty, that means it's in demand. Well, in order to meet this demand, you don't sell spice to this. You have to sell the H, which is I think helium or helon. You sell H because then they manufacture spice. So it's what they manufacture. So it's a pretty cool little, and it's a little bit abstracted and it's a little bit segmented. It's really bizarre at first, but once you understand it, it's not bad at all. And it makes total sense. So here's what we're supposed to do. I'm gonna try to tilt my camera more. And maybe make the, yeah, there we go. So we're putting more towards the table here. And so I'm gonna roll a D6 and we're gonna basically seed the market. So let's start with this. So there's gonna be 5 of them. 1, 3. So this one's basically almost full. So I can sell spice, but there's only really a demand for 1. And then once this fills up, then there's no demand at all for spice until this starts to empty. So that's sort of an interesting, anyways. Now we move to this one and there's only 1. So there's gonna be 1 of these and only 1 of the green, which by the way, we can buy at Noravan. And then 6 of the H. All right, so 2, 4, 6. And then last but not least is the spice, and there's gonna be 4 of those. Now there's another type of resource which I don't think, I think you have to sell them at the kiln, and that's the ember. And that's this. So there's this new resource. And the kiln does buy them, because you can see you can sell them for 2,000 each at the kiln. So they don't use the market. I'm not quite sure how you get ember. Maybe you only get it through missions. So it's a little more controlled. I have never played before, so I don't know. But I'm going to just go ahead and set this off to the side. And that's going to be our market now for the game. So being a merchant is a little more difficult. Here you can see, you can buy spice here, but you can't sell it. And of course, selling the spice does require you to be able to have empty spots to produce it. And so, let me see here. Now, one exception is that when you're selling cubes to Loth, which is on our board, the cubes are consumed and there's no actual production that's done with them. So if the resource section of any board is empty, it contains no cubes, then during the status phase of our turn, it actually gets $1,000 in the empty resource section. So it's now in demand. The next player to generate that resource, that means you sell the resource prior to it, and then it produces the one that's in demand. That's the trigger. You get another $1,000 as your selling bonus. And when you sell cubes, each cube sold is consumed by the planet you're selling it and placed back into supply. Then that planet produces a new cube 10 taking it from the supply and placing it on the board. Each resource section on the board may only hold 6 cubes. Once the resource section is full, any additional production of that cube remains in supply, but you can continue to sell. So I misled you there. I thought you had to, once it got full, you couldn't sell anymore. That's not the case. You can keep selling. It just doesn't fill up the board anymore. Okay. So now we have the really difficult decision. What do we do? We have 3 planets already out, which one of them's an outlaw planet. So we could try to be an outlaw. I was talking about possibly being an explorer, and so you'd have to get 7 fame points from exploration tokens and or gates. And bear with me a second. I think I have... I'm just wiping off my camera here. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I hope it is. Let's try it. No, not really, huh? There we go. There we go. Okay. So there's no gates on the board yet. Gates are just like what you would imagine from your sci-fi TV shows. You can, warp from one place to another. I would need 7 points from exploration tokens or gates in this game. So that means 7 out of my 15 points have to be generated that way. Now, every 2 exploration tokens can get me a point. And you can see here that there's 3 of them already on the board. I mean, that's a nice start. We can try it. I do like the reward at the bottom. And then the fact that it's a 15-point game means it's going to be a nice game to teach the rules versus trying to, I think it would be mean and cruel to try to teach you a game where we're going to try to win on the first turn. That would be completely cruel. So it is a decent one to try. Now this one I was thinking about, the sifting one, but you need a dead planet, and as you can see, no dead planet came out. So there's no guarantee we're going to get a dead planet right away. That's the tricky part about this game is, there's a lot of randomness to it, and you're not necessarily going to find the things that you want to find. So don't bank on it, is really what I'm trying to say here. Yep. Okay, so I'm just looking at the setup for the expansion, which is not in the solo player setup. Okay. So then we have to pick what ship we want to do. Now, that is an interesting choice. We have to start with what's called a tier 1 ship, and that's these blue ships. And I'm going to just move the camera a little bit, and there's an example of a blue ship. Now, the original game has this, it's like a cardboard, you hear that? It's real cardboard, it's thick, and then the expansion comes up, it's like almost like it feels like plastic. These are plastic ones. I guess I like the cardboard ones more, but I'm betting the plastic ones are probably an upgrade. All right, so for tier 1 ships, there's a lot to choose from. And unfortunately, which ship we use is dependent on which mission we choose, which is dependent on, the setup. And I would have loved to have thought through all this before I started recording, but I didn't. And I don't remember the skills for all these ships. So, and then I have a new expansion, right, that added more skills for each ship. So we got a little bit of work cut out for us. But here's the basic rundown. Every ship has a certain amount of energy. So, for example, this one can do 10 energy. The energy is used to recharge your equipment that's on the ship. And then think of this as like Tetris. You're going to get, so for example, this is an engine right here. See how it has like a Tetris look? And so I'm going to have to put that on my ship. And since the ship is shaped this way, I can like go around the corner like that. But then I have an empty spot there, which is not bad because those empty spots I can use to carry cargo. So I can put this cargo on an empty spot. And then this is basically an engine I can use 3 times. And that little blue 6 means I'm going to roll a D6 for my engine. So obviously I'm going to be able to, it's a level 1 engine. So it's not going to be as powerful as the other engines, which would let me roll, a bigger die per se. But anyways, that's the basic gist of these. And you can see that they have different Tetris formations, configurations there. And they do, I thank him for the math. Like this has a hold of 10, meaning there's 10 locations. This one only has a hold of 9, so it has less. So you do have to bear that in mind. And you can see here also, the Ghost Stalker only has 8 energy, whereas this one has 10. So you might be thinking, well, this one just seems to be better all around. It also has an impulse of 4, whereas this one only has an impulse of 3. I'm not disagreeing with that. It actually does look better all around, but I think it's going to be made up for by the skills. So, for example, Puddle Jumper here is going to have a different set of skills than Ghost Stalker. Ghost Stalker, I believe, can go through those planetary barriers without penalty, without gaining a bounty. We can find out for sure because then you come with these cards. And so Ghost Stalker is that one, and then Puddle Jumper is that one. And then I still have them separate, but this is the new expansion, Missions and Powers. And there should be one for Puddle Jumper, and there is. Okay, so let's look at Ghost Stalker first. So Ghost Stalker seems to have a lot of handicaps, but here you can see he comes with a disruptor field, and the disruptor field, as an action, he can spend 2 energy. That's what this 2 energy at the bottom stands for. That's 2 out of the 8 energy that he has. And then he rolls a d20, and if it's a 1 to 8, nothing happens. But if it's a 9 through a 19, then he can pass through a planetary border 1 time with no consequences, so no bounty. So that's a nice way to get into Loth and do some black market sales, right? And then if he rolls a 20, he can pass through the shield twice with no. So basically, you can go in and get out, right? So that's what this is. And then it says on a 20, you may choose this ability on 2 separate shields, basically meaning you can go through 2 different planets. So that's the Ghost Stalker default ability in the base game. So now the new one with the expansion is this is a passive ability. It doesn't cost any energy at all. Planetary shield borders never stop your movement. You can always go through them, but you still have to roll to see if you take damage. But you don't gain a bounty, which is, I think, the big thing, right? So you could possibly take damage going through, whereas this one you wouldn't take damage, but you still don't have to take a bounty. And so you may want to do this because this other one costs 2 energy, whereas this is a passive ability, so it's always on. So if you're going to go through many of them in a turn or whatever, you can. So the way the rules work is you pick one. You don't get to have both. So you're picking one or the other. So if you go with the Ghost Stalker ship, that's your choice. And like I said, the Ghost Stalker doesn't have as much hold space. It doesn't have as much of an impulse drive. It doesn't have as much energy. So you are paying a little bit of a price. And remember, the rules to this campaign is I have to play this Ghost Stalker at some point. So there might be a particular type of mission or a campaign mission where this is the perfect one. And I don't know what that would be, but I'm just letting you know that's how you read these boards. Now the armed and disarmed, it's as simple as this. So they all have 4 arm tokens, and they would just, go on like so. Is that blurry? It is. There we go. Okay, so they would go on like so, and this, for example, is a shield. Okay, so let's say, like, actually this particular ship can't even hold this. Do you see how? Because the Tetris doesn't fit. But let's just say it did. These little orange symbols mean I can put these on to activate that shield 3 times. So the shield has 3 activations, and then I only have 1 more activation. So if I'm out in space, I then have to spend energy, which would be another one of these. So I would spend energy, you know, 1, 2, 3, like this, and then I could rearm it 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, they go under the disarmed. If you're out of energy, they go down here. And then at some point, you're going to have, if you don't figure out a way to get your energy back, you're completely disarmed and you're just, you know, you're defenseless in space. And your impulse drive is the only thing that can keep you moving. It's a situation you don't want to find yourself in. Now, how do you recharge your energy? You do that by visiting planets. And so as long as you end your turn on a planet or on this kiln, right, on this thing, then you get to do what's called the business action step. And it's a recharge for free. You don't spend anything. It's just, you know, as long as you're there, you get it. Okay? So those black things aren't what we're supposed to use because I think black is a player color. Yep, it is. Okay, so we'll figure that out. This little shield here is, it's a big shield. It's not meant for these tier 1 ships. There is a tier 2 and a tier 3 for ships. So obviously the highest level shields are not meant for this. So we got Puddle Jumper, we have Swamp Rat, which actually has 12 hold space. So it's even higher than Puddle Jumper, and but only 8 energy. So you can see they all have strengths and weaknesses. Persistent Memory. Puddle Jumper seemed to have the most energy. Numerator, and then Easy Tiger, and then Vagabond. Okay, so it is quite a daunting task because, okay, so like what did the Puddle Jumper do? Puddle Jumper in the base game lets you collect energy from space. So while you're out in space, you don't even have to visit a planet, right? You roll a die and you get that much energy, which is perfect because then you don't have to visit planets and get recharged. This one, during your status phase, you can pay 0 energy to arm your markers. So that allows you to take your markers and put them back in the armed status without having to spend any energy at all. You know, so you have to pick like whichever one you prefer. So, you know, continuing along here, we got Quantum Ripple. When you take the blind jump or scan action, choose the orientation of the new sector. Edge symbols don't need to match. So remember how we had to match, you know, arrows or whatever? This lets you not match anything. That's sort of cool. So that's Quantum Ripple. This one's the Batia Grid for Vagabond. You can collect carbo cubes from areas on the map that normally don't contain resources. So obviously this is a real good one if you're going to be a merchant, right? It's actually a really great one if you're going to be a merchant. Persistent Memory allows you to target any adjacent ship. On a successful roll, you may move along directly behind the target ship when it moves up to the number of spaces specified below. This one's more useful when you're playing with other players, but you could use it with the NPCs. If the NPC is moving in a direction you want to go, you can use it. I think this is where the expansion might come in handy. So let's grab some of these expansion ones. For Quantum Ripple, in fact, I don't have Quantum Ripples. Quantum Ripple does not have an expansion card. So he has only 1 ability. So if you pick Quantum Ripple, this is what you're getting. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Persistent Memory has this other one called Total Recoil. You may use weapon outfits as if they were engine outfits. So, so basically, you don't have to equip you don't have to equip an engine. You can just equip a weapon and then use it as a weapon or as an engine. That's pretty interesting. Obviously, if you get into a battle, you're reducing the number of move actions you get to do on a turn, but it's very interesting. That's That's persistent memory. But your shield, there is a penalty to this. Your shield piercer mods are 3 weaker. I know I didn't explain what those all are, but we'll get into those. And what was the other one? It was Vagabond. Here's the 2 Numerator. Here's the 2 Easy Tiger. And here's 2 Swamp Rat. So this this Vagabond one does not have a... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Here it is. These are the 2. I'm such a jerk. This or this. It's one or the other. So Batia Vagabond is the Great Merchant one, or you could get this thing where you get to set the orientation. You get to pick either one with Vagabond. Okay, and Vagabond is this guy. So he's not bad. This just is a place to track your bounty, if there's a bounty on your head. Okay, so Easy Tiger. When you would roll to use an outfit, instead of rolling, you may treat each die as a natural 3. Oh, that's right. This is the weird one. Immediately after rolling any die, spend an energy and re-roll. I sort of like this one more, but it's going to depend on what we use it for. Swamp Rat. Each damage on your outfits gives +1 instead of -1 when used. Not to exceed the out. So you actually sort of like damage if you're this person. That's a really interesting one. Or Oversurge. Use an action or as defense, spend 1 energy. Place 1 damage marker anywhere on the outfit, and then you may use that outfit as if you placed an arm marker on it instead. Okay, so that's an interesting one. And then Numerator. When you collect an exploration token, you may pay 5 energy to double the result. So, for example, you get 2 cargo, +10 movement, 2 missions, etc. You resolve the token first and then decide to pay. And as an action, if there are no exploration tokens on the board, you can pay 5 energy to place one on a previously collected space. So this is perfect for that one where you have to collect so many energy or exploration markers. In fact, I know some of you might be glossing over with boredom. I'm actually going to pick this one. We're going to pick Numerator, and we're going to pick Expert Explorer. This one says earn at least 7 fame points from exploration tokens. And see this one? When you collect an exploration token, you may pay 5 energy to double the result, or you can pay 5 energy to put exploration tokens on the map. So if we're ever needing more, we can pay energy to get more, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. I know I can really think this through, and it's overwhelming. And so I hope you can appreciate how overwhelming it feels. I didn't even look at the ship and see what it has on it, but we're gonna go ahead and play Numerator. And so in doing so, this skill is out of the game. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on this box to show, because remember, every ship has to be used once before you can use it again. So we're never going to be able to use Numerator again after this until we've played every other ship at least once. So Easy Tiger, here's Numerator right here. So let's see if this strategy pays off. It might not. Who knows? Let's just have fun, right? All right, so all the other missions I'm going to set to the side. Okay, so I'm going to have to find the ship. So Numerator, you can see, looks like this. So give me a second while I try to find, is that this ship right here? I think it is. Okay, so that's Numerator. And then when you're playing solitaire, you don't need this as much, but they give you these little things because if you're playing with multiple players, that's to show, you know, your player red. I'm gonna do it just for fullness sake. And then I'm gonna go ahead and grab. So what we have here is you get 4 arm tokens, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like that. And if I back up the camera a little bit, I'm going to put 1 on the 9 to show that we're at 9 energy. And then I have 1 more for nefarious purposes. I do have 2,000 bucks, so don't put them here because that shows that you have a 2,000 bounty. That means if somebody destroys you, they get this money. So keep this like just off to the side of your board. And I am going to move my board down out of the way as much as I can. And we do need to have one of these impulse tokens. So let me grab one of those. And what this means is I flip this over once per round. And the impulse tokens can let me move 4 spaces. So it doesn't matter what my engine is, I can move 4 spaces even if my engines are dead and I have no energy to recharge them. I only have $2,000 and we're gonna have to buy equipment for our ship to start this game. And we for sure have to get an engine. So I can tell you right now that that's 1,000 of our money. And there's nothing we can do about it. We gotta get an engine. Otherwise we're only moving on an impulse and that's a bad start to a game. We have our numerator ability. Now, one thing that I want to point out is if I ever upgrade to a tier 2 ship, I keep this ability. This ability stays with me the whole game, even if I go to a tier 2. So then I get to combine this ability with the tier 2 ability. So there's a really cool, combo factor that's going on. And then this, of course, is our objective. So I'm just going to put that there. And what else? Okay. Since we have to play hard, all the NPC stats start on side B from the start. And then, if you recall, the setup card said that we're going to have to spawn the NPCs, okay? So, the NPCs spawn as follows. This Enforcer spawns on Kemplar 2. So when Kemplar 2 is discovered, he gets placed on it, and I believe he starts on the spawn location. I'm pretty sure. And then the Scoundrel is going to spawn because he spawns if Loth is in the game. So the Scoundrel spawns here on the 5. And then the Merchant spawns if and only if 2 of the planets on his trade route are in the game. One of those planets is Kemplar 2, which is on the game. And then we have Doravan 5, which is this one. So you can see 2 of his planets are there, so he's going to spawn. He spawns on the 2nd planet in the trade route to be discovered. So he spawns on Kemplar 2. 2nd planet in the trade route to be, yeah, because this one was discovered last. So I think he just spawns next to, since the spawn point's already taken. Usually if the spawn point's already taken, you spawn somewhere else. So I don't know what to do in this situation. Of course, I'm running into a rule issue from the start. There's 2 places in the rules. There's spawning. It might be written there, or it could be written in the NPC section. So for respawning, and this is after you're destroyed, the NPC would ignore that spawn and go somewhere else. But that's not necessarily the situation here. We're spawning, what I could do is just spawn him on Doravan 5, because that spot is available. And I think for the sake of time, I'm going to do that. It's not the end of the world. It was just trying to suggest that the 2nd planet that is revealed, that's where he spawns, but we'll spawn him over here on Doravan 5. Okay, so he'll start on that one, since this one was already taken. Okay, so all 3 of our NPCs are in the game from the start. That's not normal either. So last but not least, we have to now select, so these 2 are for the Scoundrel. Okay, so we're going to select what he's going to do. And so this is an 8-sided die. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 7, 8 is this one. He's hateful. Okay, so hateful is he goes after the player nonstop. He's hunting me down, and he doesn't give a rip about anybody else in the game. Yay, us. All right, so then we got to go to the merchant. Okay, so same deal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's doing this one. He's a collector. He's going to target the buy space on the next trade route. He's going to move to the target, and if arrived, he's going to buy a cargo. And if he has 3+ cargo on board, he gets +1 fame point for NPCs. So he's going to be the reason they get a lot of fame points. And this one's out. And then this is for the enforcer. 1, 2. So he's a big game hunter. This is the one that Colin had in his playthrough. He only goes after outlaws, and only if they're tier 2 or higher. The scoundrel is not tier 2 or higher. That's the issue with that. So that's unfortunate. Okay, so as far as setup goes, I think we're through most of it. There is one more thing with the scoundrel that we need to go on. Okay, so for here, the scoundrel is going to spawn with 2,000 bounty on his card. And if he kills an innocent ship, he places another 1,000 on him. Okay, so bounties are represented by this, because anybody can have a bounty on them, except for maybe the enforcer. So it goes on like that to show he has a bounty. And it's a 2,000 bounty. And the way you represent that is we just take 2,000 bucks, and I'm just going to put it on, I just put it on his card. Okay, and that just shows he has a 2,000 bounty. Now the merchant is interesting because this is the old AI from the base game. So you're going to want to use the new AI because this says that, you know, he gets 1,000 when he arrives at a sell space. He's not even going to a sell space in this game. So, but the part that's important is you do get to see his trade route, and you get to see what happens if you kill him, and how he defends himself, stuff like that. Okay, it does show what you get for him defending, and they have stats from here. We sort of ignore the stats there. It takes 20 damage to kill the merchant. It's a lot of damage. And he has a 1d12 shield. So the merchant is very difficult to take out, at least health point wise. And he moves 15 spaces. It's a ridiculous amount because we're starting with hard mode. So these guys are really beefed up. And the scoundrel is going to hit us with 2 d12 blasters, which is also nasty. I honestly think I'm screwed. I wish he got any AI but that one, and we would have been fine. So that's very unfortunate. Sorry, I'm getting caffeine. Okay, last but not least, before we start, on our turn, we get to perform actions. And then business, and then status. Each attack on a merchant or enforcer, just an attack, it doesn't matter if we kill it or not, we get 1,000 bounty. And every time we enter an outlaw planet, we get 1,000 bounty. And these are, some of these rules are specific to just a solo game. And then on the end of our turn, the universe is going to expand. Basically, we're going to draw a tile and reveal a tile. We spawn NPCs if we need to, but they're already all out. And then the NPCs get to go. They follow their behavior. And if the ship is destroyed, our ship, the NPCs score points. And if the NPC destroyed by a player, optionally draw a new behavior for that NPC. We do have one ship that has not spawned, and that's the Sellsword. he needs the Rogue's Den or the Gambler's Den or whatever it's called. And then last but not least, the NPCs are going to roll a die, and they're just going to flat out score points based on what they roll. And they get bonuses to their die roll depending on things that they did. So that's the part that causes them to really score points like a Banshee. Okay, so that's our solo. Now, as for our actual turn, during our action phase, we get to move with engines or impulse. We get to attack, and then we get to explore. Now, if you see the word minor, it means that it does not interrupt the move, meaning you can do those actions that have the minor word next to them and still continue moving, okay? You get any number of actions that you would like, but obviously the actions that don't have minor next to them causes you to end your movement. So if you move somewhere and then you want to do a scan, you can do both of those things. Those are two actions. It doesn't matter how many you do. But then, obviously, once you scan, there's nothing else to do, right? You need to move again to get to do a different action. And so your moves are basically going to dictate your number of actions, right? You can move, you can do some things after you end your movement, but at some point you're going to need to move again. And once you run out of opportunities to move, you're basically done, and you're going to have to pass. So that's the idea. So we, last but not least, have to spend our $2,000. And then I will end this video, and we will start the playthrough, which I know seems crazy that we spent this long going through setup and whatnot. But there's a lot to this game, and I did explain with the campaign, there's a whole bunch of extra decision making up front that we have to do. Okay, so what can we spend money on? That's the key thing here, and there's quite a bit. First thing we got are shields. I have 3 different types of shields to choose from, and there's this shield that uses a D12. It's the big shield, and then we have a D6 shield here, and I think there's a third type. And then there's a D8 shield. So thinking Tetris here, we got a straight, a T, and a that. Those are the 3 types of shields. And they are typically 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So, you know, level 1, the 1,000 is going to use a D6, the 2,000 is going to use a D8, and 3,000 is going to use the D12. Remember, we only have 2,000, so the D12s are not even on the table. And then we have missiles, which are going to look similar. So this missile actually is a D20. So you can see there's a D20 missile, and then there's a hunter missile, and there's your 3 missile types. We're not buying any missiles, although we may need to because of this damn scoundrel. But the type of mission we picked is Explorer. So we need to pick up those exploration tiles, and I think the key here is we're going to need an engine for sure. And then we may need to boost that engine. So that's what's going on in my mind. So instead of showing you all the different types of shields, and there's also like blasters that we can get, let's get out the 3 types of engines. And here's the 3 engines. There's a D8, a D12, and a D6. And again, the D12 we can't afford, but I wanted to show you what it would look like. And this particular ship is an interesting one. We actually could, if we had the money, you can see right there, I can put a D12 engine right on this. So this guy can handle the big, powerful engine. He's got the right Tetris positioning, but we don't have the money for that. You can get money by doing trade routes and handing in exploration tokens, but I think we're going to have to go with a D6. I would love to maybe spend 2,000, and I may still do that. Let me think this through. But for sure, we need to at least spend 1 on this. So whether we're going to spend 2 is another story. Here's the other thing we have. This comes with the expansion. It's a GTS. And so what it does is if I put it orthogonally next to an engine, So it's going to take up another space. But if I put it next to an engine, it adds +2 to my die roll. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll, let's say I'm using this. I'm going to roll, and I rolled a 1. I only get to move 1 space. That's crappy. Well, this is a guaranteed +2 to my die roll, so I would at least get to bump this up to a 3. Now, the drawback to this with a cheap engine is I can never go above the 6. So all it's doing is giving me mitigation for when I roll poorly. So if I roll a 5 or a 6, this will bump me to a 6, but no higher. So it's still good. It's basically clamping off the extreme on the 1 and 2. So it's guaranteeing that I'm going to move at least 3 spaces every round, or every time I do an action. So that's an option, because it's another 1,000. So my choice is, do I get the D6 with the +2, or do I get a D8 without a +2? With the D8, I could still roll a 1 or a 2, or even a 3. And it's a crappy roll, but I can move up to 8 spaces potentially instead of 6. And at some point, I might get $1,000 that allow me to buy one of these. If you ever were to trade these in to upgrade, they trade in for half value. But the tier 1s, actually, I get the full $1,000 back. So that's the other reason that buying a tier 1 item is an advantage. I don't lose any money for buying this right now. So if I ever want to upgrade to the D8 later, I get this full $1,000 back. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this plus the GTS. Let's get a lot of movement in. Now, there are other things I didn't even explain. There's shields. There's mission computers that let you get more missions. There's ways to pierce shields, like so it makes your weapons more powerful. And there's even this really cool thing. I'm going to at least show you this. This is a way to expand your cargo. So what you would do is if you bought this is only $1,000. It's really cheap. But if you buy it, this little green here goes on your ship. So it goes on one of my spates, and it creates 3 new spots outside of my ship that can be used to hold cargo. So it basically is you're expanding the size of your hold, so that way you don't have to use these spaces to hold cargo. You can actually just take 1 space and then add 3. You're exchanging 1 space for 3, basically. Now the other side is also 1,000, and it works very similarly, except this is for damage. So now I'm basically saying I can absorb 3 damage here, and actually a 4th one there, right? This would basically allow me to put 4 damage on that 1 spot. So it allows my ship to... the way damage works is damage goes right on these spots, and if it ever covers up like your engine fails. You start to get penalties to your die roll, and then if all 3 of them are covered up, then your engine doesn't work at all. So that is something to consider. I could choose not to buy this GTS and buy some armor plating to absorb some damage. The damage absorption is nice from the perspective that I know that scoundrel is going to be coming after me, right? So if he's going to be coming after me, I can at least put damage there, and my ship won't, be so bad. Healing damage is tough because you have to pay $1,000, I think, per damage to heal. I'm not seeing myself having a lot of money in this game, so I'm going to go with this, and we're going to call it. Okay, so where would I put it? You do get to rearrange, by the way, so it's not like it's permanent what your decisions are. So if I do something like this, the GTS is next to the engine, orthogonally next to it. So now this engine will benefit from that GTS. I could also put the GTS here or here, but not there. Okay? So I think we're ready. I feel like we're going to lose this game. I really don't have a lot of... and I think it's going to be that the scoundrel's going to make our life miserable. Given our mission and what we need to do, I'm very nervous. But that's what we're going to start with. And thanks for watching. Stay awesome. I'm going to check a few things that popped in my mind in the rulebook. Just want to make sure I understand those, and then we're going to go ahead and get started.